Here's some Bible trivia. According to the book of Judges, when Samson stood between the two pillars and collapsed the Colosseum, where did this take place? Answer: Philistia. Today, that same biblical area is called Gaza, and Israel's defense forces continue to face modern-day Philistines, called pro-Hamas Palestinians. Is Israel being demonized by the world over Gaza? Stay tuned next on The Crossover.
For nearly 2,000 years, Jews and Christians have been divided. But now, God is calling for the healing of past hurts and the comforting of His people. Discover how God is prophetically uniting Jews and Christians across the world today on The Crossover. Here is Mitch Jerome.
On January 8, 2009, a large police presence descended on Houston's Holocaust Museum to separate opposing factions over the Gaza war. Pro-Hamas supporters lined one sidewalk. Facing them were Jews and Christians, standing with Israel, telling the world, never again. Since we were carrying a large camera, a policeman felt he had to approve our passage into the demonstration. He warned if we were caught inciting or provoking, we'd be arrested. My wife seemed to give a chuckle, not the right time. And with a big stare, he said, "Lady, you may find that funny, but I will arrest you." It was going to be a day with a lot of attitude. What do you say when there's a demonstration going on today in front of the Holocaust Museum, of all places where there could have been a demonstration? Any particular comment on that?
Oh, we are protesting the allegations made, as if there is any relevance or correlation between Nazi crimes and ravages of war. Whatever casualties war brings, they have nothing in the realm of a genocide.
Even though they've got signs on the side of the street proclaiming that quite loudly.
Well, it's a free country.
Others were more animated with their opinions.
Utterly tasteless, utterly inappropriate, ghastly protest across the street from the Holocaust Museum. For these people who equate what is going on now, Israel defending herself, with the genocide conducted by the Nazis, is intolerable.
Was it possible that the war in Gaza had any comparisons to Hitler's genocide on the Jews?
I just think it's really kind of sick. They're here in front of the Holocaust Museum, a place that is really a sacred place to not just Jews, but Christians, Muslims, all religions, to really talk about and really demonstrate in a museum and memorialize a true genocide. The argument that they have is that a democracy, Israel, who uses leaflets to warn civilians about pending attacks, who uses smart bombs and guided weapons to limit civilian casualties, is equivalent to a Nazi genocide that used ovens and gas chambers. It's just to make the comparison, you either have to be totally ignorant of history or you have to be anti-Semitic.
This war is not a Holocaust. This is a war that was started by Hamas. It was started by them firing one rocket after another. There were 8,000 rockets fired at women, children, innocent victims, that those aims of those rockets were to kill them. That was the reason that finally Israel said enough is enough.
I wanted to hear directly from the Palestinian Hamas supporters why they were here. Maybe the Palestinian side had legitimate allegations concerning Israel and the Gaza war. We were privy to capture 40 minutes of oration from the head Palestinian spokesperson, just me and him. I felt NASA and I had an openness between us, and he saw my attempts to listen, learn, and digest. So I documented his words with the intention of verifying his statements back in the studio.
If they understand what's happening down there, if the media truly reflects what's happening with the suffering of the Palestinian people, nobody will support the state of Israel.
Did Nasser have any compelling facts to back such a comment?
The missiles came actually as a response to the violation of the Israeli government to the ceasefire agreement that made with the Palestinian factions, including Hamas. And the ceasefire agreement started in June and ended in December.
I got back to the studio and found NASA's comments on the ceasefire was a half-truth. Even CNN accused Israel of breaking the ceasefire.
Most news organizations have ignored the possibility that the people who actually broke the ceasefire was not the Palestinians, or not Hamas in Gaza.
The reality and the truth is that the side that broke this truce and this ceasefire was Israel.
In fact, CNN even quotes 3 other journals which cite, quote, Israel kills 6 gunmen digging tunnels to raid Israel.
The 6-month ceasefire started coming apart at the beginning of November after Israeli commandos killed a team of Hamas fighters during a raid on a tunnel they suspected was being dug for kidnapping of Israeli soldiers. That raid set off more Palestinian rocketing. That's U.S. News and World Report.
So CNN and U.S. News seem to demonize Israel for her attacking gunmen who were caught preparing to attack Israel. Here's what confuses me. These big stations left out one major piece of newsworthy facts, which us little guys at the crossover found. If South Houston fired rockets into North Houston, after what quantities of missiles makes a retaliation permissible? 1, 5, 10, 30, 50? Israeli communities received 329 missiles before the Israeli government would finally retaliate. CNN, I hope you're watching. The focus is not on the 6 terrorist gunmen that were killed preparing to attack Israel, but on the 6-month span of 329 bombs Hamas launched into Israel. A little detail CNN seemed to omit from her unbalanced reporting. Shame on you, CNN. Now I know why some call you the confused news network. NASA stated that each of the pro-Palestinian protesters had family still in Gaza. Many had experienced losses. Sadly, NASA himself had a cousin killed the prior day from a piece of shrapnel. Obviously, the tragedy of innocent lives lost is the big price all countries pay for going to war. I asked NASA if he could simply see that Israel is defending herself from the rockets.
If your neighbor throws a rock at you,
yes,
and it hits a rock, not a rocket, a rock throws. Well, we're talking, 2 families, two neighbors.
Go ahead.
And they're talking 2 states or 2 countries. Actually, not 2 countries. It's an occupation against an occupier. If your neighbor throws a rock at you, then you get angry and you get a bulldozer and totally destroy his house. Is that fair?
Well, that's a little extreme.
Exactly. Well, that's what's happening.
I was stunned in disbelief. First of all, it's about rockets and not rocks. Israeli families have 15 seconds from the sound of a siren to find a bomb shelter or perish. Sounds like living in hell on a daily basis. Doesn't Israel have every right to defend her people like every other democracy? NASA, the reason so many innocent Palestinians are wounded or killed might have to do with the way Hamas fights. Hamas are cowards. They use innocent Palestinians as human shields. They fire rockets from family rooftops or from schools. When I asked NASA about 8,000 rockets, like Sarah quoted, being fired from Hamas since Israel left the land, he says,
rockets did not start a long time ago. The rockets has not been there for like maybe a year or 2 max.
The defensive operation was designed to dismantle the infrastructure of Hamas, which has fired more than 10,000 rockets, mortars, and missiles at Israel since 2001.
It is not a Holocaust. This was the Holocaust. This is where my grandparents, and this is a reminder of my grandparents that I never met, of my grandmother who was killed in Greece, and my grandfather who was killed in Yugoslavia of a Holocaust. And the reason that they were killed is because they were Jewish. That was their crime.
Trying to understand Palestinians' hatred towards Israel regarding Gaza, land the Palestinians now control, they are upset of Israel's control over their freedoms to get in and out. Isn't this a misinterpretation of a concentration camp?